Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. Combat never left him. The silence inside that house didn't feel right. Coulter Briggs stepped through the front door with the same instinct he used clearing buildings overseas. Slow, soundless, hand tight on the grip of his duffel. It was supposed to be a surprise. Renee hadn't known he was flying home early. After 18 months in Kandahar, he just wanted to see her smile. Smell her hair. Crash in their bed. Instead, he heard it. A faint creak. A giggle. Then laughter. Not hers. A man's. Close. Upstairs. He froze. Boots still caked with red sand. Chest rising like he was back in a war zone. Except this battlefield had family photos on the walls and wedding vows in frames. He climbed the stairs quietly, each step calculated. That combat calm kicked in, the kind you learn after seeing friends bleed out in dust storms. The kind that makes your vision narrow to just a door. Their bedroom. The door was cracked open. Slivers of light spilled out. Shadows moved inside. Clothes were scattered. Police uniform shirt, Trent Maddox, name tag still on it, thrown across the chair. Coulter didn't open the door. He turned around. Walked out the front. No noise. No words. Not yet. His truck engine didn't start until he was halfway down the block. He didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't hit the wheel. He just muttered, like a man reciting a plan to himself in a language only revenge understands. You slept with the wrong man's wife. What do you do when the war you survived overseas follows you home and puts on your badge? Wait. Before we go any further, we just hit 3,500 subscribers. And it's all thanks to you. If you love these stories, don't just watch. Subscribe and be part of the fam. Plus, because of your amazing support, I've launched a second channel full of intense revenge, cheating wife, and betrayal stories you'll love. Links in the description and pinned comment. Go check it out and subscribe now. Now tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. All right, let's continue the story. Coulter knew Trent Maddox. Everyone did. Small-town cop. Good OL, boy charm. Deputy of the year 3 times. Perfect teeth. Church every Sunday. Also, complete snake. Back in high school, Trent used to screw over kids for sport, plant a joint in a locker, pull some anonymous tip, then walk around like a hero. Coulter had run into him a few times over the years. Never liked him, but he never imagined this. Now Trent was screwing his wife. In his house. On his sheets. Coulter didn't go back to the base. He checked into a motel off Route 14. Cheap, quiet, clean enough. He stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every second of that bedroom noise, trying to understand how long it had been going on. Weeks? Months? He opened his laptop, looked up Trent's name, department website, schedule, socials. Then he looked up Renee's calendar. Their work shifts overlapped just enough. Tuesday afternoons. Friday evenings. Sometimes Thursdays. Figures, he muttered. Same old playbook. Different enemy. He bought a burner phone the next morning. Then a small audio recorder. No more guessing. No more second-hand truth. He would gather everything. Not just texts or photos. He wanted the truth in motion. Sound. Faces. Lies unfolding in real time. If war taught him anything, it was this. Never strike blind. Always see the whole map before you drop the bomb. And this? This was going to be tactical. He walked past Trent's patrol car that night like nothing was wrong. Just a tired vet going for a walk. Inside, though, he was already building the first brick of Trent's downfall. Coulter stood in the motel bathroom staring at his reflection like it owed him answers. His eyes looked different. Sharper. Deader. You don't survive 4 tours by being soft. But this? This was a different kind of war. No gun. No mission briefing. Just betrayal in the shape of a woman he once thought was forever. He splashed water on his face. Shook it off. Time to move. At 3 a.m., he pulled up outside his own house. Parked a block away. Night vision camera in hand. Gloves on. The same Renee who once cried at his deployment now laughed in the arms of the man who used to write him speeding tickets for fun. Trent thought he was untouchable. A uniform gave him cover. A badge gave him arrogance. But Coulter had something neither of them expected: training and patience. He slipped around the side yard, knowing every inch of that property. He built the damn fence. Under the porch, behind the gutter line, he planted the first camera. Motion activated. Cloud storage. Inside the house, light flicked on. Trent, shirtless. His gun belt hung on the chair like a joke. Renee followed, wine glass in hand. Coulter pressed record. Not just for evidence. For memory. So when this ended, no one could say it was hearsay. Back in the motel, he replayed the footage. Trent kissed her neck. Called her baby. Said she should just go ahead and leave him already. Renee laughed. Oh, I will. Just need to make sure I get the land and the divorce. You know how these ex-military guys are. All stubborn and survival mode. Coulter leaned forward. Land? This wasn't just about cheating. It was about theft. And now, it was personal. The next morning, Coulter parked across from the diner like he had a dozen times growing up. The same rusted bench out front. The same smell of coffee and bacon. But today, he wasn't here to eat. Inside, behind the counter, was Gloria, Renee's best friend. Loose-lipped. Always listening. Coulter walked in slow. Ordered a black coffee. Sat near the window. You're back early, she said, arching a brow. He nodded. Needed time. Thought I'd surprise Renee. Gloria hesitated. Did you? I surprised someone, he said flatly. Her smile faltered. A crack in the mask. Bingo. Coulter didn't push it. He sipped his coffee and let silence do the rest. People talk when they're uncomfortable. It's human nature. And right on cue, she's been stressed, you know, Gloria said, wiping an already clean counter. Trying to sort things out with the house. The land paperwork? Land. Coulter asked, careful not to sound too interested. Gloria nodded. She and Trent had been meeting with that developer guy. What's his name? Halstead. From the next county over. Big plans, I guess. Coulter's jaw tensed. So it wasn't just betrayal. It was business. They weren't just sleeping together. They were plotting. Using him. He left cash on the table and walked out without a word. Back in the motel, he pulled up property records. His father's land, nearly 17 acres of old oak and field, was still in his name. But someone had recently requested power of attorney access. Filed by Renee. The date? 2 weeks ago. While he was still deployed. His hands curled into fists. This wasn't an affair. It was a setup. That night, Coulter returned to the house again, this time, not for cameras. For proof. He moved like fog. Boots soft in the grass. Gloves tight. He knew Renee's routine. Knew when she left her phone charging downstairs. Knew she drank enough wine by 10 p.m. to sleep through a thunderstorm. He slipped in through the back door. Quiet. Calculated. The office drawer was still where he left it. Locked, cheap. A gentle pry with a flathead, and it popped open. Inside, files. Receipts. Envelopes. And a thumb drive. He pocketed the drive. Took photos of the paperwork, land maps, legal letters, a business card, Halstead Development Company. He froze when he heard the toilet flush upstairs. Renee's voice. Slurred. Laughing. Then Trent's. I told you, babe. Once we close that deal, we're golden. You get your payout. I get my promotion. Coulter's not gonna roll over that easy, she muttered. Coulter's teeth clenched. Oh, come on, Trent said. He's a soldier, not a lawyer. Footsteps. Soft, padded. Headed back to the bedroom. Coulter slipped out before they hit the stairs. Heart pounding, breath steady. Training saved him again. At the motel, he loaded the thumb drive. Emails. Text backups. Voice memos. Photos of Trent and Renee with Halstead at a dinner table, signing papers. Dates matched the days Coulter was sending her letters from overseas. Love letters. And she was signing him away. He sat in silence, eyes burning. Then clicked record on his own laptop camera. His voice was low, cold. They didn't just cheat. They tried to erase me. He stared into the lens. I'm going to erase them first. Coulter wasn't a man of many words. He was a man of actions. And now, every move he made was part of a bigger strike. The next morning, he mailed 2 packages. One went to a local journalist named Ray, someone who owed him a favor from years back. The other went to a state oversight office, the kind that loves to sink its teeth into public corruption. Both envelopes contained exact duplicates, copies of emails, contracts, and photos of Trent at private dinners with Halstead, all timestamped during work hours. But that was just phase one. He also drove out to see Clay Jensen, a Marine brother who now ran a back-end security firm from a warehouse that looked abandoned. "You ever bury a man without pulling a trigger?" Coulter asked, setting the flash drive on the desk. Clay scanned through the files, whistling. "Damn. You weren't kidding. They used my deployment to set this up. She's filing power of attorney fraud. He's pocketing bribes. I want them both done by the book, but scorched earth legal." Clay nodded. "We'll build a timeline. Trace financials. Let's make it ugly." Coulter left that meeting with a plan tighter than any op he'd run overseas. That night, he drove past Trent's cruiser, just sitting there like a trophy in front of Renee's house. He slowed the truck, looked straight at it. Inside, his sidearm rested under the seat, but he didn't reach for it. Real power wasn't in the gun. It was in the truth he now held, in the chain reaction it would unleash. From this moment on, every word, every click, every piece of evidence was a bullet. And he had plenty loaded. The workshop smelled like sawdust, sweat, and old motor oil. It hadn't changed since high school. Clay slid a hard drive across the table. "Everything's mirrored. No trace back to you." Coulter nodded, arms crossed. "Good." They sat in silence for a moment. "You sure about this?" Clay asked. "You go this route, there's no walking it back." Coulter didn't answer right away. He looked at the wall at a photo of them in uniform, Iraq, 2012. In the background was Daniel, his younger brother, smiling like the war hadn't touched him yet. "He died thinking we fought for something real," Coulter said finally. "That this country still honored loyalty." Clay leaned back. "And now I know better," he muttered. "But I'm gonna make them remember." They pulled up Renee's financials. Clay had already cracked her accounts, covert payments from Halstead, deposited into an LLC under a different name. She'd set up a fake consulting company to mask the funds. "This ain't personal anymore," Clay said. "It's criminal." "That's the point." Outside, Coulter stood under the open sky. Missouri was quiet this time of year. Leaves barely moved. He dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Daniel's old phone. Still active. Still paid for. He let it ring once. Twice. Then ended the call. Just needed to hear it. "Miss you, brother," he whispered. "Time to clean house." He watched the video again. Renee and Trent laughing over wine, plotting. "I want to keep the land," she said. "It's worth way more than he realizes." "You've earned it, babe," Trent whispered. Coulter's fists clenched. He'd buried friends with less betrayal. Their land wasn't just property. It was legacy. His father raised cattle on it. His mother planted vegetables that fed half the block. His brother learned to shoot there. And now Renee wanted to pave it for condos? He pulled out an old memory card from his gear, slid it into his laptop. Footage from his last deployment played. Charred fields, broken homes, children crying beside rubble. The things he fought to protect weren't on foreign soil. They were right here. He clicked record again. "To anyone watching this, if something happens to me, know this wasn't an accident. Know it started with a lie and ended with truth." He uploaded the video and stored it in 3 different drives, encrypted and labeled for release. Then he opened an email, anonymous, secure. Subject: fraud, bribery, abuse of authority, internal complaint attached, files, evidence, names, dates. He hit send. Outside, Trent was in uniform again, walking to his cruiser like nothing had happened. Like Coulter didn't exist. Coulter stepped back into the shadows, calm and cold. This time, there would be no roadside warning. Only impact. The bait had to be perfect. Coulter created a fake identity, Logan Price, newly transferred county building inspector. He registered the name in a local directory and set up email aliases. The photos he used were AI-generated, real enough to pass. Next, he scheduled a building review request for Halstead's development site. In person. 2 days later, Halstead himself showed up. "Can I help you?" the man asked, eyeing Coulter's clipboard. "Need to walk the perimeter," Coulter said, voice slightly deeper, accent shifted. "Got flagged for some discrepancy in the recent permits." Halstead frowned. "No one mentioned this." "They wouldn't," Coulter said. "State's doing a random audit." Halstead grunted but nodded. "Fine. Let's walk." Coulter snapped photos, pretended to make notes. He scanned the inside of Halstead's trailer, saw plans with Coulter's family land outlined in red. Phase 3, Briggs property. So it was real. On his way out, Coulter accidentally dropped a small USB stick behind a printer. Inside it, a tracker and camera. By the time Halstead realized something was off, Coulter would know everything. That night, he uploaded the first leak to his small-town Facebook group, blurred images of Trent and Renee, time-stamped, cozy in a city vehicle on duty hours. The caption? Tax dollars well spent. No name. No source. Just gasoline, waiting for a spark. The Facebook leak spread fast. Within 24 hours, the sheriff's office went into damage control. The photo, Trent in uniform, laughing in a city cruiser while feeding Renee a milkshake, was too obvious to ignore. It wasn't just infidelity now. It was misuse of public resources. Coulter sat in his truck outside the courthouse, watching as Trent walked in through the back entrance with his captain. Neither of them looked confident. He'd planted just enough doubt. And it was only the beginning. Inside the building, Coulter had already bribed the janitor with cash and a promise, "You didn't see me. Ever." In exchange, he got access to a back storage room where the internal complaint boxes were collected every Friday. Coulter didn't drop a complaint. He dropped 3, each from a different citizen, each outlining unethical behavior by Trent, dating a married woman while on shift, falsifying hours, using patrol vehicles for personal errands, all anonymously signed. It was bureaucratic warfare, and Coulter played it clean and cold. Meanwhile, Gloria, the diner lady, called Renee and told her, "People are talking, honey, and not in a good way." Renee texted Coulter that night. "Renee, what the hell is going on? Are you spreading lies about me?" He didn't respond. Instead, he forwarded that message to his lawyer. Evidence, emotional manipulation, pattern of behavior. By morning, Renee's real estate clients started pulling out. One canceled mid-deal, said they wanted to stay away from drama. Collateral damage. That's what you get when you bet against a man who's been to war and survived it. Sunday dinner at Renee's parents' house had always been awkward, but this time, it was a powder keg with silverware. Coulter had agreed to come when Renee's mother called him personally innocent, unaware. Renee said you two needed to talk. "Please, Coulter, don't give up on each other yet." He didn't say no. Sometimes, revenge demands patience and proximity. At the table, Renee sat across from him, all forced smiles and overpoured wine. Trent wasn't there. Not brave enough. Her father, gruff and proud, gave Coulter a nod. "Still proud of you, son. Don't let marriage stuff knock you down." Coulter forced a smile. "I won't." Renee leaned in, whispered through clenched teeth, "You need to stop this. Now." Coulter wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Stop what? You know damn well. These posts, the calls, the whispers. Trent's been suspended pending review. I could lose my license." He sipped his water. "Actions have consequences." Her eyes narrowed. "You think this makes you a man? You're pathetic." He set his glass down gently. "You were going to steal land my father died protecting. And you call me pathetic?" She froze. Her parents glanced over, sensing the tension. Coulter stood. "Thanks for dinner." "Where are you going?" her mother asked. "Home," he said. "Back to the part of it that still belongs to me." He walked out. Calm. Controlled. But inside? Fire. He'd said just enough to make Renee sweat. And that was all he needed. Renee's side of the story hit Facebook the next day. A long, polished post full of half-truths and veiled blame. "I've done my best to support a man suffering from PTSD, but abuse, emotional distance, and instability have consequences." She painted herself as a victim. Coulter read it once, then again, then closed his laptop. The gaslighting was bold, but expected. He walked into the sheriff's office the next morning, not as an accuser, but as a citizen. Spoke to a clerk. Filed a request for dashcam footage from patrol car number 231. Trent's car. "Do you have grounds?" she asked. "Public interest," he said. "Transparency. You'll see why." 2 hours later, he had what he needed. Trent and Renee. On duty. Kissing. Driving through a residential zone. Sirens off. Coulter clipped the footage. Sent it anonymously to 3 news blogs. The headline? "Deputy suspended after caught driving mistress on duty, video evidence surfaces." By the time the video hit TikTok, it had over 40,000 views. Comments exploded. Wait, that's a cop? Isn't she married to that vet? This is nasty. She really said abuse to cover up this? Wow. That evening, Coulter stood on his porch, looking over the field. Quiet. No press. No police. Just the weight of public opinion shifting. He didn't need to shout. The truth was finally speaking for itself, and it was louder than any lie Renee could ever write. Trent Maddox slammed the cruiser door so hard it echoed across the parking lot. His face was flushed red, jaw tight, hands trembling, not from fear, but humiliation. He had just come from a disciplinary hearing. The footage of him and Renee kissing in uniform, while on duty, played on a screen in front of 4 superiors and a union rep. The worst part? They didn't even speak. Just stared. Pending further review, you're suspended without pay, the captain had said, not even bothering to look him in the eye. Turn in your sidearm and badge. He did, but not quietly. Coulter watched from across the street, leaning on his truck like he had all the time in the world. He didn't smile. That wasn't his style. When Trent finally noticed him, their eyes locked. You smug piece of shit, Trent spat, storming over. You think this is over? No, Coulter said calmly. I think it's just started. You set this whole thing up. You planted those cameras, twisted the truth. I didn't twist anything. You did. In my bed. In my house. A beat passed. You really think she's worth it? Coulter asked, stepping closer. You think she's got your back now that the walls are caving in? Trent didn't answer. He just stood there, breathing hard, fist clenched. But he didn't swing. He knew better. Coulter leaned in, voice low. You were trained to write parking tickets. I was trained to make ghosts out of men who never saw me coming. He walked past him, slow, deliberate. Trent didn't follow. Because somewhere deep down, he knew Coulter wasn't bluffing. Coulter didn't expect the call. But when it came, he recognized the voice instantly. Hi, is this Coulter Briggs? Female. Nervous. Controlled. Who's asking? This is Tara. I don't know if you remember me, but I work dispatch for the sheriff's office. Or, I did. He sat up straighter. Go on. There's something you should see. I'm not doing this for drama. I'm doing it because I've been used, too. An hour later, they met at a diner 2 towns over. Tara looked tired. Makeup faded. Hands fidgeting with a coffee stirrer. She slid a small envelope across the table. Trent promised me a future, she said quietly. Told me he was going to leave Renee for me. Said he loved me. Then I found out I was just a backup plan. Coulter opened the envelope. Inside, copies of texts. Screenshots. One showed Trent mocking Renee to Tara, calling her dumb, needy, and easy to control. Another? A wire transfer receipt. $5,000 from Halstead to Tara's account, listed as admin bonus. What's this? Coulter asked. He used me to cover phone records. Faked calls as official dispatch logs while sneaking out to see her. Coulter exhaled slowly. He's not just dirty. He's stupid. She nodded. And he's about to implode. You just need a little push. Coulter stared at the texts, already calculating how to spin this. Tara leaned forward. Just, when this all blows up, make sure the truth gets out. About all of them. Not just him. He met her eyes. It will. He walked out with the envelope in hand. Step steady. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was tactical, layered, and the cheaters were starting to betray each other. The bar off County Line Road was dim, low ceiling, neon beer signs flickering like they were gasping for breath. The kind of place locals went to forget things and where trouble liked to drink alone. Coulter walked in just before closing. Trent was already there. 2 glasses in, 3 shots down. When he saw Coulter, his chair screeched back hard. You got a death wish, Briggs? Coulter didn't flinch. He walked up and laid a small photo on the bar, Trent and Halstead shaking hands. Tara's screenshots printed in color. Trent stared at it. His breathing hitched. You followed me? No. You left the trail yourself. You son of a, the bartender cut in. Take it outside, boys. Coulter didn't move. He looked Trent square in the face. I want you to think real hard, Trent. When this all comes crashing down, and it will, who's going to burn with you? Because I have emails, transfers, witness statements. But most of all, I have you. Trent's eyes narrowed. You threatening me? No, Coulter said. I'm warning you. You think anyone's gonna believe a washed-up PTSD case over a cop? Coulter pulled out his phone. Pressed play. Tara's voice came through clearly. He used me. Covered calls. Took bribes. Lied to everyone. Trent froze. Coulter leaned close. I don't need them to believe me. I just need them to see you. Then he turned, left cash for his beer, and walked out. Outside, night air felt colder. Cleaner. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was exposure. And Trent? He just stepped into the line of fire. The garage smelled like cold metal and old gasoline. Clay had turned it into a digital war room, 2 laptops open, cords snaking across the concrete floor, monitors showing encrypted feeds and storage folders labeled with names that now felt like targets. Coulter paced behind him, arms crossed. You sure this works? Clay nodded. Every file you gave me. Mapped it to timestamps. Emails between Trent and Halstead? Boom, crossed with city payroll logs. Meetings during his shifts. Voila, fraud. Coulter looked at the folder marked Internal Affairs Ready. Pull the cruiser GPS logs too, Coulter said. If he was driving her around on duty, I want that route. Times. Dates. All of it. Clay pulled up the data. Got it. Good, Coulter said. Now we make sure the system sees it. He loaded it all onto a flash drive and an encrypted cloud folder. Backups on backups. That afternoon, Coulter dropped the drive off anonymously at the IA division downtown. No fingerprints. No face on camera. Just a man in a hoodie, walking with purpose. By sunset, calls were flying. The sheriff's office launched an emergency review. Trent's cruiser was seized. His login credentials revoked. An audit of all open cases he'd worked in the past year was quietly initiated. Coulter stood at a distance outside the station, watching Trent argue with the watch commander through a closed glass door. His arms flailed. His voice cracked through the glass. He was unraveling. Coulter didn't smile. But inside, he felt the pressure shift. This wasn't just about humiliation now. It was about exposing the system that protected them. And now it had teeth. The country club fundraiser was packed. Small-town elites in blazers and pearls, sipping wine under white tents, pretending their world wasn't burning behind them. Renee stood near the raffle table, fake laughing with a couple from the HOA. Her lipstick perfect. Her mask flawless. Then she saw him. Coulter. Black shirt. Jeans. Calm as ever. He walked straight toward her. Every head turned. The room didn't go silent, but it bent. Tilted. Tension hung like humidity. Coulter, she said, eyes flicking nervously around. What are you doing here? He didn't answer. Instead, he opened a leather folder and pulled out a single, neatly stapled packet. Divorce papers. Thought you'd want these served somewhere classy, he said. The woman beside Renee gasped. Someone behind her whispered, that's him. Her hands trembled as she reached for the papers. You're making a scene. No, he cut her off. You made a scene the day you climbed into our bed with a cop and turned my family's land into a business deal. Eyes widened. The couple beside her stepped back. You need to leave, she hissed. I'm leaving everything, he said. The lies. The games. But not the land. That stays with me. He turned, walked out without looking back. The silence behind him screamed louder than any slap ever could. Later that night, her lawyer called his. My client requests to meet and negotiate privately. Coulter's response? Tell her we don't negotiate with thieves. 2 days later, Coulter parked outside the county courthouse. He didn't have an appointment. Didn't need one. He pulled out his phone and dialed a contact saved under a single name, McGregor. A deep voice answered. I was wondering when you'd call, the man said. Coulter nodded. It's time. Pull the trigger. There was silence. Everything in the package real? You think I'd waste your time with half a shot? Good. Consider it done. He hung up. McGregor wasn't just any contact. He was on the State Commission for Public Integrity. A former Marine turned bulldog bureaucrat. And Coulter had saved his life once in Afghanistan. Payback came with reach. By noon, a formal inquiry had landed on Halstead's desk. State level. Oversight. Armed with financial disclosures and city records Coulter had quietly mapped through Clay's help. Halstead's lawyer called Trent. And Trent? Called no one. He just showed up at the sheriff's office, demanding to speak to the captain, only to be handed a letter. Termination under review. Coulter watched from across the parking lot again. This time, Trent didn't yell. He didn't storm. He just stood there. Alone. No badge. No backup. Later, Coulter drove out to the edge of his land. The sun was setting behind the oak trees. He walked into the field, where his father used to watch storms roll in. He stood there quietly. The last call had been made. The last shot fired. Now? He waited for the collapse. And it was already rumbling. The mayor's office released a bland press statement at 10 a.m. in response to recent allegations involving misuse of city resources and misconduct within the sheriff's department. An internal review is currently underway. We are cooperating fully with state investigators. But the people? They weren't reading between lines anymore. They'd seen the photos, the video, the texts, and now they wanted blood. Coulter stood outside the courthouse, watching as a news crew rolled up for interviews. One reporter held up a printed screenshot of Trent and Halstead at a fundraiser, with Renee tucked between them. Another showed the GPS logs from Trent's cruiser overlapping with private dinners and real estate deals. It wasn't just scandal anymore. It was a web of corruption, and it was unraveling fast. Inside, Halstead's office went dark. Staff were on leave. Phones went unanswered. Renee showed up once that week, dressed like she was heading to a funeral. Which, in a way, she was. Her career was in the ground. Her reputation? Lit on fire. Coulter didn't celebrate. He watched. Measured. Let it bleed slow. At the station, Trent's locker was cleared out. The badge was gone. The desk emptied. Clay sent Coulter a one-line text that night. Phase 2 complete. Coulter stared at it in silence, then deleted the message. Out in the barn, he dusted off an old duffel bag. Not for weapons. For planting. Tools. Seeds. Rope. Shovel. He wasn't just burning things down. He was ready to rebuild. Coulter visited Daniel's grave just after sunrise. The cemetery was quiet, save for the wind brushing through the rows of headstones. Some had flags. Others had nothing. Just names and time. Daniel's stone was clean. Coulter made sure of that. He crouched down, resting one hand against the granite. No words for a while. Just breath. Just memory. Things are loud again, he said finally. But it's a different kind of war this time. He pulled out a worn photograph, him and Daniel, both in uniform, laughing over something dumb from back home. He slid it under a rock by the marker. You always said I'd settle down one day. Build something. Protect what matters. His voice caught. Well, I'm trying. I swear I'm trying. He stood up slowly, scanning the horizon. But it wasn't Afghanistan out there. It wasn't a war zone. It was just Missouri. Just his home. Still standing. Like him. As he walked back to the truck, he passed a young vet in a wheelchair visiting another grave. They nodded at each other. No words. Just that quiet, shared understanding. Coulter drove away without music, windows down, silence filling the cab. There was grief in him, sure. But for the first time in a long while, there was something else, too. Clarity. That evening, Coulter walked the edge of the property, boots crunching over dry earth, wind curling through the old trees. The same ground he used to train on with Daniel when they were teenagers. Throwing punches into pads. Running drills. Swearing they'd both make it back if they ever left. He paused by the fence line where they carved their initials into the wood. CB plus DB blood brothers. War-tested. Homegrown. He touched the letters with a calloused hand. I kept your promise, he said softly. And I'm not done. Back at the house, he found an old shoebox tucked under the crawlspace floorboards. Inside were his father's field maps, his mother's handwritten notes on planting seasons, and a rusted dog tag belonging to Daniel. Coulter held it tight. This land wasn't just dirt. It was memory, sweat, history, and they had tried to sell it for condos and cash. Not anymore. That night, he drafted a letter to the local land conservancy, a preservation trust. No development, no construction, just trees, grass, life, a legacy. By the time he sealed the envelope, the fire inside him had shifted. No longer just about vengeance. Now, it was about protecting what mattered, and making damn sure no one took it away again. Coulter didn't flinch when Renee pulled into the driveway. She stepped out of the car slowly, dressed in all black like someone preparing for a funeral she knew she cost. Her eyes weren't teary. They were calculating, studying him like she was still trying to find a weak spot. He didn't invite her in. She stood at the edge of the porch, hands buried in the pockets of a designer coat she used to justify with words like professional appearance. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "You already did," Coulter replied. "You just used different weapons." She took a breath. "There's something you don't know." He raised a brow. "Now you're playing the mystery card?" It wasn't just about Trent. It was never about love. Her voice dropped. Halstead wanted the land. Trent needed leverage with the county. I was the middle. Coulter's jaw tensed. "You signed away your husband for a plot of dirt?" She swallowed. "It's worth millions. Developers were already circling before your dad passed. Trent found out through a zoning board contact. I was supposed to help smooth it over." "And what were you promised?" he asked. "Equity. Clean slate. My name on the LLC." Coulter nodded slowly. It hit him like a slow dawning storm. Not just betrayal, but strategy. She hadn't cheated because she was lonely. She had cheated on purpose. Calculated. Cold. Renee shifted, eyes softening for the first time. "I did love you, Coulter. I just loved being in control more. That did it." He stepped back, opened the screen door. "We're done here. You think people will still care about any of this a year from now?" He paused. "No, but you will." Then he shut the door, and she stood there alone. The zoning records office was quiet. Coulter stood at the counter as a clerk typed slowly on a dusty keyboard, squinting at the screen. "You said this parcel was under inquiry?" the clerk asked. "Yeah. Briggs family land. 2 miles off County Line Road." The man nodded. Yeah, here it is. Funny. Looks like someone filed a rezoning application under a holding company name, Red River Holdings." Coulter froze. That wasn't the name Halstead used in any of the papers he'd seen. "Can I see who owns the company?" The clerk frowned. "Shell Corporation. Protected." But wait. He clicked around. "Here's something. A secondary contact on file. Backup trustee, listed 6 months ago." He turned the screen. And there it was. Tara Jensen. Coulter stared. For a second, everything stopped. The former dispatcher. The woman who'd come to him for help. For justice. She was part of it? Or was she being used, too? He thanked the clerk and walked out into the parking lot, heart pounding not from anger, but from confusion. Had Tara lied to him? Or had someone forged her involvement? He opened his phone, pulling up her last messages. Reread them line by line. They sounded real. Raw. She looked him in the eyes when she gave him the texts. But why was her name there? Coulter sat behind the wheel, engine off, thoughts racing. The revenge map he'd built had just cracked wide open, and someone was playing another game just behind his back. Tara didn't answer his first call, or his second. It wasn't until the third that her voice came through, cautious. "Coulter, we need to talk." Silence. Then, where? Neutral ground. An hour later, they met at a river park just outside town. Families played in the distance, but their corner of the trail was shaded, quiet. Coulter didn't waste time. "I saw your name on a zoning record. Connected to the holding company that tried to rezone my land." Tara blinked. Stunned. Not faking. "What? That's not possible." "It was listed as backup trustee." "You sure you never signed anything tied to Halstead?" She shook her head, fast. "No, never. I don't even know what that means." Coulter watched her. She wasn't lying. Not in her voice, not in her body language. Then a memory hit him. Weeks ago, she mentioned Trent once had her sign work documents on his iPad while they were seeing each other. Something about streamlining shift logs. He looked her in the eye. "Did you ever sign anything electronically while with him?" She blinked. Maybe." He said it was for HR stuff. Just digital forms. "I never read them." He nodded slowly. "He forged you," Coulter said. "Used your name to distance the paper trail from Renee." Her breath caught. "They used me to throw you off." Yeah. Now it made sense. Every piece. Every play. They had turned everyone into weapons. But this time, Coulter had all the ammo. The house was quiet when Coulter returned, but something pulled at him. A memory. Years ago, his father had mentioned keeping the real documents in the old root cellar beneath the pantry floorboards. Back then, it sounded like paranoia. Now, it sounded like foresight. He moved aside crates and a rolled-up rug, peeled back the floor mat, and found it, a rusted, iron ring latch set into old planks. He pried it open, revealing a narrow set of steps into darkness. The air was cool and stale, like time had been trapped inside. At the bottom was a small steel safe, dusty but intact. His father's initials were etched into the top corner, WB. He cracked the seal. Inside were thick folders, property blueprints, recorded land transfers, and buried beneath everything, a handwritten journal. His father's. Coulter sat on the concrete, flipping through pages. One entry caught his eye. Halstead approached me again. Wants to rezone the pasture near the oak grove. Says it's just business. Told him no. Land stays in the family, no matter what they offer. Another, months later, got wind Renee's been meeting him behind my back. Can't prove anything, but I don't trust her. Told Coulter nothing. He's already got too much weight on his shoulders. Coulter closed the journal slowly. So it went back further than he thought. His father had sensed it. Saw what was coming. The betrayal didn't start with Coulter. It started before he even knew to look. But now, he had everything he needed. They'd buried secrets under his home, and he was digging them up, one truth at a time. Halstead's office was locked. So was his second one, an off-grid meeting spot above a shuttered furniture shop in East Hollow. But Coulter wasn't showing up to talk. He was there to dismantle. Clay had already run a trace on Halstead's business activities. False fronts, dummy contracts, payoffs under consulting fees. It was deep. Coulter waited across the street inside an empty laundromat, camera in hand, watching through cracked blinds. Right on schedule, Halstead arrived alone. No driver, no assistant, just arrogance. Coulter entered 15 minutes later, quiet as fog. The lobby reeked of stale cigars and cheap whiskey. He didn't knock, just opened the door. Halstead jumped. Jesus, how did you get in here? You should invest in better locks. Halstead laughed weakly, regaining posture. You here to make threats? No, I'm here to deliver consequences. Coulter pulled out a single sheet of paper, the zoning timeline, Tara's forged signature, the false trustee line, and the matching digital footprint traced back to Halstead's own IP. Halstead skimmed it, then folded his arms. You don't scare me. This is business, not personal. You made it personal when you crawled into my house through her. Halstead's eyes narrowed. Even if you blow this wide open, you think anyone in that county will care? You'll go down in the mess, too. She's already talking, you know. Coulter stepped closer. Let her talk. Let you talk. Because every word you say makes my story stronger. He dropped a second paper, a list of leaked files set to release publicly the next morning. You've got 12 hours to prepare. Prepare for what? The fall. Back at Clay's warehouse, the plan went live. Coulter named the op himself. Emberfall, a nod to what happens when a house catches fire and every piece falls where it was meant to. Clay tapped the keys like a concert pianist. Video package embedded. Press release drafted. Timers locked. They set up a timed release across 3 local news blogs, 2 community Facebook groups, and a private email list that included council members, local clergy, the school board, and the Land Conservancy Board. All of it scheduled for 7 a.m. Coulter leaned over the screen, reading the lead-in headline, Corruption in County Shadows, Bribes, Betrayal, and a Stolen Legacy. Below it, everything. Photos, contracts, GPS logs, scanned pages from his father's journal. Even a voice memo from Tara, explaining how Trent tricked her into signing a forged contract. What's the goal here? Clay asked. Coulter stared at the monitor. Not just justice. Exposure. I want every door they walk through to remember what they did. Clay nodded. And after that? Let the fire do what it does. At 7:03 a.m., Renee's world ended. She was mid-pitch, standing before a property auction room full of investors and realtors when the phone started vibrating. One by one, people pulled out their devices. Heads bowed. Eyes widened. Whispers turned to murmurs. And then silence. The projector behind her flickered off. Someone had disconnected the laptop. Renee blinked. What's going on? The auctioneer stepped forward, phone in hand. You might want to read this. She grabbed it, and there it was. Her name, front and center, listed in the expose as knowingly participating in fraudulent real estate schemes involving a sitting officer and county developer. Behind her, someone stood up. Then another. The room thinned. Fast. Her phone rang, 7 missed calls from Trent. She didn't answer. By 9:15 a.m., her brokerage pulled her license pending review. By 10 o'clock, she was served with a cease and desist from Halstead's law team. And by 11:30, she was sitting alone in her car in a quiet parking lot, staring at the windshield like it owed her something. Coulter never texted her. He didn't need to. The truth had spoken, and it had burned everything she built, down to the last polished smile. The footage wasn't new. It had been collected weeks ago. Just one of many silent witnesses Coulter had hidden around the house. Angle after angle, audio paired with high-definition clarity. A living record of betrayal. But what mattered now wasn't just what was recorded. It was when it was released. At exactly 3:15 p.m., the main news page linked to a video titled, "Behind Closed Doors, the Officer, the Realtor, and the Fraud." The first clip played without warning. Trent, sitting at Coulter's kitchen table, casually discussing how to sweep the land transfer under county radar. Renee, seated beside him, sipped wine and said, "He'll be overseas for 6 more months. That's more than enough time." Her tone was sharp, confident. A few moments later, an audio cut. Trent's voice. "If this goes bad, I'm pinning it on her. Just saying." Another cut. Renee, laughing. "You'd throw me under that fast?" And then the last clip, short but damning. Trent and Renee in bed, her whispering, "He'll never see it coming." The silence that followed online wasn't really silence. It was explosion. By evening, a protest sparked in front of the sheriff's department. Local papers printed, "County betrayed by its own." Comment sections flooded. And in a smaller, more private place, Coulter sat in his truck, watching it all unfold on his screen. Not smiling, not celebrating, just finally breathing. The camera had seen what the world needed to see, and that was enough. The developer's trailer office burned just after midnight. No injuries, no suspects, just a box of files lost in the fire, according to the morning news. Coulter was miles away when it happened, watching the glow from a ridge above town. He didn't light the match, but he knew the kind of fire truth could start. Halstead released a statement within hours. Red River Holdings will be dissolving all current real estate partnerships in the county effective immediately. We apologize for any confusion caused and are cooperating fully with investigators. Translation? They were running. Clay called that morning. "You see this?" he asked. Coulter sipped his coffee, standing on the porch as dawn crept over his land. "I saw. Your file dump scared them into the shadows." "Good. You want to hit them with more?" Coulter paused. "No. Let the smoke clear first." He wasn't interested in ashes. He wanted space, quiet space, to rebuild. But even as he stepped off the warpath, others weren't so lucky. Trent's car was vandalized outside his apartment. Tires slashed, a message scratched into the hood, "Stolen badge." Renee's bank accounts were frozen pending fraud review. And Halstead? Gone. Left town. No goodbye. The storm had passed. But the scorch marks? They stayed. Coulter drove out to the mailbox at the edge of his property just before sundown. He hadn't touched it in a week. Didn't expect much. Junk, maybe a few bills. Instead, there was an envelope. No name. Just his. Inside, a letter. From Renee? He didn't read it immediately. Just stared at the handwriting. Familiar, once comforting. Now it just looked practiced. He walked back toward the porch, slow. Sat down in the same chair his father had used for years. The oak tree cast long shadows across the dirt, like arms reaching for something already gone. Finally, he opened it. "Coulter, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to, but I need to say this anyway." The letter ran 4 pages. Mostly apologies. Some regret. A few excuses buried between thin lines. She said she had tried to justify it all in her head, but now she didn't even recognize the woman she became. She claimed she missed the man he was before the war and hated herself for pushing him away after. She ended it simply. "You loved me better than I ever deserved. I hope you find peace. I hope I do too." Coulter folded the letter once. No anger in his face. No tears. He stood, walked to the fire pit beside the shed, and lit a single match. The letter burned fast. The goodbye was silent, but final. It was the first morning in weeks where the air felt like spring. Coulter walked the ridge behind the barn, shovel in one hand, a bag of saplings in the other. He passed the old fence line, boots brushing against grass that had finally started to grow back since winter faded. He chose a spot near the big oak tree, where his brother used to sit on summer nights and talk about the future. The soil was firm but ready. He dug slow, methodical, hands working without rush. No music, no noise, just the birds and wind. The first sapling went into the ground with ease. Then the second. He worked until noon, planting 12 in total, each one spaced with care. When he was done, he stood back and looked across the field. It didn't look like revenge anymore. It looked like beginning. Later, he painted a wooden sign by the driveway. Briggs Grove in memory, in legacy, in peace. By sundown, the paint had dried. He stood there, arms crossed, heart quiet. He hadn't just taken his life back. He'd rebuilt something from it. Something that would stand longer than the pain ever did. It had been a week since the last headline, and the dust hadn't settled so much as it had buried the right names. Trent filed a lawsuit. Wrongful termination, emotional distress, harassment. The courtroom filing made the local news, but the tone had shifted. No more hero cop narratives. Just a disgraced officer grasping at legal straws. Coulter read the notice with tired eyes. He didn't get angry. He just forwarded it to his lawyer with a note. Let it bleed in public. The next day, Coulter made his own move. He filed a countersuit, harassment, defamation, emotional harm, and most importantly, illegal surveillance on private property. It wasn't just about what Trent had done to him. It was about making sure the truth had a permanent place in court record. The sheriff's department, now under interim leadership, quietly reached out with a settlement offer. They wanted to avoid more press. Coulter didn't take the money, but he asked for something else. Trent's name? Struck from the department roll entirely. No badge. No retirement honors. No legacy. The town saw the headline the next morning. All records of Officer Trent Maddox expunged from department history after internal review. It was quiet, official, and exactly the kind of justice Coulter believed in. Not loud, but permanent. The sun hit different now. Coulter sat on the tailgate of his truck, parked halfway down the old gravel path that led to the creek. The air was still, light wind rustling through the grass. He watched the water move slow and steady, unchanged, like time didn't bother showing up here. Lila sat beside him, quiet like always. She didn't ask questions, just handed him a thermos of coffee and kicked her boots off. You've been off the radar, she said gently. Needed space. You've got a whole county's worth now. He smiled, small but real. They sat in silence a while. Then she asked, so, do you feel better? He looked at her, then at the trees across the creek. No, but I feel done. That's something. Coulter nodded. I thought taking them down would fix everything. Like, if I just pulled every rotten root, I'd finally breathe again. And he exhaled. Closure's a lie. But peace? Peace is earned. Lila leaned her head on his shoulder. Not romantic. Just familiar. The kind of quiet that only people who'd both been through hell understood. They watched the sky fade into gold and pink. For once, no past, no plan. Just this. The oak tree in the center of the land was older than anyone could remember. His father used to say it was the spine of the Briggs bloodline. Now, it stood taller than ever, shadow stretching across the new saplings like it was watching over them. Coulter walked the grove with a clipboard, marking where he'd placed new fencing. Each stake in the ground felt like a piece of something permanent. Something his. He passed by the spot where Renee once wanted to build a guest house for entertaining clients. Now, it would be a meditation bench beneath the shade. His mind didn't wander back to her much anymore. If it did, it didn't ache. She was gone. The damage wasn't. But neither was he. In the barn, he uncovered a box of his father's old tools. Sharpened the blades. Cleaned the rust off. He built the bench himself. Took 2 days. No shortcuts. When it was done, he sat down, wiped the sweat off his brow, and looked around. The past had burned. But the roots? They held. The courtroom was cold. Wooden benches. Quiet echoes. A judge who looked like he'd seen 100 lies this week and didn't want to hear another. Coulter sat straight in the witness chair. No nerves. No hesitation. Just truth. Across from him sat a state investigator reviewing Halstead's full case: land fraud, bribery, and abuse of public trust. Coulter laid it out in detail. "I didn't come back looking for a fight," he said plainly. "I came back to a war I didn't know was happening. And I did what I was trained to do. I mapped the battlefield. I neutralized the threat." The room was silent. The judge asked one question: "Did you do anything out of revenge?" Coulter didn't blink. "I did it for protection. Mine. My family's name. The land we were meant to carry forward. Revenge just happened to be the only language they listened to." The judge nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Briggs." As Coulter stepped down, the gavel hit wood. Case accepted for full prosecution. Outside, reporters gathered. Cameras. Flashes. Mics. He walked past them all, didn't say a word. Justice had its moment. Now it was time to go home. The old shed was the last piece left standing from before everything went to hell. It leaned sideways from years of storm winds and broken promises. The door was half-rotted. The roof sagged like it knew its time was done. Coulter stood in front of it with a crowbar in one hand and a sledgehammer in the other. He didn't hesitate. The first swing cracked through the front panel. Wood splintered. The second hit knocked it loose. And by the sixth, the door was gone, dust curling through the air like ghosts leaving. By sundown, the shed was a pile of rubble and memory. The next day, he started building. Not another tool shack. Not a storage box. This was going to be something that meant something. A quiet space. A reflection room. Somewhere people could come to breathe. Coulter called it the Stand, named for what he'd done, what he'd survived, and the decision to remain rooted when everything tried to move him. Local vets stopped by to help. Word had spread, quietly, that Coulter was turning the land into something healing. No speeches. No big sign. Just purpose. By the end of the week, the framework stood. Sturdy. Honest. Real. Kind of like him. Lila returned one evening with a bag of groceries and a tired smile. She didn't ask for permission to stay. She didn't need to. They cooked quietly together in the kitchen. No music. No need for conversation. Just knives on cutting boards and the soft hiss of onions and oil. After dinner, they sat on the porch. "I heard about the Veteran Center project," she said. Coulter nodded. "It's small. Just a start. It's enough." She leaned back, eyes on the darkening sky. "You know, I kept thinking about what you said that day. About peace being earned." He looked over. "You've earned more than you know, Coulter." He didn't answer right away. Then he asked, "Why do you stay?" Lila shrugged. "Because I knew the man behind the silence. Not the soldier. Not the headline. Just you." He exhaled. "It wasn't a love story. Not yet. Maybe never. But it was something better. Trust rebuilt, without needing to be asked." A week later, a letter arrived, stamped with a seal from the mayor's office. Hand-delivered by someone who looked nervous even knocking on the gate. Coulter opened it at the kitchen table. Inside, a clean, printed invitation. Run for county council, District 3 nomination. They wanted him to step in. Not as a symbol of revenge, but of integrity. Lila read it over his shoulder. "You gonna do it?" He shook his head slowly. "Politics isn't where I fight best, but it's where change lives." He folded the letter, set it aside. "I'm not built to sit at desks and smile through lies, but I'll support someone who is." Later that week, he recommended another vet, a single mom, former medic, who'd served 2 tours and now ran a free clinic. She accepted the nomination. The papers tried to spin it as a humble pass. But the people who knew? They saw the play. Coulter didn't need power. He'd already taken it back. The final letter from Renee came in a plain envelope. No return address. Postmarked from a rehab center halfway across the state. Coulter didn't open it. Not right away. He left it on the mantel for days, untouched. Then, one morning before sunrise, he walked outside, coffee in hand, and opened it on the porch as birds stirred and wind whispered through the trees. The handwriting was different now. Smaller. Less controlled. "I don't know what to say anymore, Coulter. I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't do the things I did. And maybe that's all I can ask of myself now." She talked about therapy, regret, learning to sit with shame. She never asked for forgiveness. And that was the first smart thing she'd done in years. He folded the letter and tossed it into the fireplace without ceremony. Some things didn't need answers. Some endings just needed to be finished. The VA group met on Tuesdays, tucked in the back of a worn-down building near the edge of town. The room wasn't big, just 6 folding chairs, a coffee pot that never quite worked, and a circle that held more truth than most courtrooms. Coulter hadn't stepped inside since the week he got back. Today, he did. No announcement. No, guess who's back? Just a quiet entrance, nod to the coordinator, and a seat at the far end. The man beside him was missing 2 fingers. The woman across had scars down her neck she never explained. But they all sat the same way, like the world didn't fit them quite right anymore. The group leader, an older Marine named Rick, looked up. Anyone got something they need to say today? Coulter didn't speak first, but he did speak. Used to think revenge would fix it, he said. That if I just burned the right people down, I'd sleep easier. A pause. Heads turned. It didn't fix anything, but it gave me space to rebuild. He looked around. I stopped blaming the war for breaking me. Turns out, it was the lies afterward that did most of the damage. No one interrupted. No one judged. Rick finally said, "You still standing?" Coulter nodded once. Still standing. Then you're ahead of a lot of us. Silence settled again, but this time, it felt warmer, lighter. When Coulter left the meeting, he didn't feel fixed, but he felt seen. And sometimes, that was enough. Coulter woke up to the sound of birds and nothing else. No alerts. No calls. No lawyers. No messages from the past trying to rewrite the present. Just sunlight slanting through the kitchen window, dust swirling in the glow, and the coffee pot sputtering like it finally learned how to do its job. He stepped out onto the porch barefoot, coffee in hand, letting the warm boards meet his feet. Across the field, the saplings had grown another inch. A tractor passed in the far distance. A hawk drifted overhead. Time slowed. For the first time in months, maybe years, nothing happened. And that was beautiful. He didn't check the news. Didn't look at his phone. Instead, he spent the morning fixing the fence line, oiling tools, then walking the grove. He stopped by the bench under the oak tree, sat down, and breathed in the air like it actually meant something. At noon, Lila brought lunch. Sandwiches. Simple. They ate on the tailgate of the truck, not talking much. Just chewing, sipping, and letting the wind carry away whatever thoughts didn't need to stick. Coulter looked at her and said, "I think today's the first day I haven't thought about them." Lila smiled. That's not nothing. No music played. No revelation struck. But by the time the sun started to dip, Coulter realized something. Peace doesn't arrive with a bang. It sneaks in through the back door when you're too busy living to notice. The local high school asked him to speak. Veterans Day. Coulter almost said no. He wasn't a speech guy. Didn't like crowds. Didn't like the sound of his own story echoing in gym walls. But something told him to go. He stood at the podium in a worn flannel and jeans, no medals, no fancy intro. Just him. The bleachers were full. Teenagers with earbuds in one ear. Teachers trying to keep them focused. A few parents scattered near the back. Coulter cleared his throat. "I'm not here to give you a war story," he started. "I'm here to tell you why I almost let everything my family built get stolen. And why I didn't." That got their attention. He talked about his father, his brother, the land, the betrayal, the silence that followed. Not like a hero, but like someone who made it out when you didn't think you would. "I don't care what patch you wear or how strong you think you are. If you don't protect the truth, someone will sell it right out from under you." He paused. Legacy isn't something you're given. It's something you hold on to with both hands, even when they try to rip it away. When it was over, no one clapped at first. Then a single student stood. Then another. And another. Coulter didn't smile, but his eyes did. Outside, a teacher caught up to him in the parking lot. "My son wants to be like you." Coulter glanced back at the school. "Tell him to be better." Then he got in his truck and drove home slow. The way you do when you're not running from anything anymore. The oak tree's shadow stretched across the grove like it had always been meant to lead. Coulter stood near the edge, boots pressed into the soft grass, watching as 3 kids from the local school planted their final sapling for the day. They were part of a new after-school program Lila helped launch, teaching land work, legacy, and healing. One of the boys wiped sweat from his brow. "That one's mine." Coulter smiled, just slightly. "Yours to care for." The boy beamed. Later that afternoon, Coulter helped the last group pack up, then walked the field alone. The sky was gold with evening. The breeze was warm. He paused at the wooden sign at the edge of the land. Briggs Grove in memory, in legacy, in peace. He placed a small, handmade plaque beneath it. Planted by the past. Grown for the future. Back at the house, Lila sat on the porch, sketching something in a notebook. Coulter stepped up and took a long breath. You think the worst parts of your story are what define you, he said quietly. But maybe they're just what prepare you for the real part. She looked up. And what's the real part? Living through it. And planning something better after. She closed the notebook and stood beside him. They didn't say anything else. They didn't need to. Because some endings aren't loud. They're just right. It was a full-circle kind of morning. The same gravel path. The same gate. The same house. But nothing felt the same. Inside, the photos on the wall were different now. His father, Daniel, and a framed newspaper article titled, "Veteran Turns Betrayal into Community Sanctuary." Coulter sat at the kitchen table with a mug of hot black coffee. No storm inside him. No weight on his chest. Just quiet. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, his trees. Trent was gone. Halstead vanished. Renee's name faded from town memory like a rumor that lost its sting. And Coulter? He wasn't the man who came home broken. He was the man who stood back up. By the afternoon, kids were back in the grove. Someone played guitar near the oak tree. A new bench had been added, carved with the names of those who'd served and sacrificed, including Daniel's. Coulter stood beneath the tree, arms crossed, heart calm. He didn't win by destroying them. He won by rebuilding himself. And that was the revenge they never saw coming. That's it for today's story, folks. Coulter's story proves one thing. You can take down the cheaters, the liars, the corrupt, but the real win is what you build after the wreckage. If you felt that ending hit right where it should, subscribe for more revenge, gripping stories just like this. And here's a question for the comments. If you were in Coulter's place, would you have gone for revenge or walked away? Let's talk about it below.